All right, so I haven't done a good job of filming and keeping up with this, but so this is the car that I'm working on. So this is my 1957 Ford Fairlane 500 two-door post. It's currently it's got a 289 in it, and this is what we're getting ready to put the engine in from that Lincoln in the refresh. Like I said, I haven't done a good job of updating, of filming this. So before we made too much progress, I want to kind of show everybody what it looked like. So this car, I bought this car in 1985. I bought it out of a guy's backyard. I gave 80 bucks for it. It had no windows, no floorboard, no engine, no transmission, quite a bit of rust. And this was going to be my high school car. So when we bought it, and unfortunately I don't have any good pictures from in the past, but when I bought it, it was off-white and a coral pink, and that was the original colors on it. It had no, like I said, no interior, no windows, floorboards were rusted out of it, but the body wasn't in too bad shape. It did have some rust in the corners, the fender corners, and around the eyebrows and around the quarters, typical 57 Ford rust. But as she sits right now, this is how this car has been since 1986 when I finished it and I drove it my junior and senior year in high school. So this was my high school car. So I graduated high school in 1987. So this car has been just like this, as you see it right now, since 1986. It's got a 289 in it. The 289 came out of a 64 Ford Galaxie 500 station wagon. And this was the engine that I had at the time because I bought the station wagon off of my grandfather for $1. And it had this engine and an automatic transmission behind it. So it was what I had, and it's what I put in the car because, you know, I was a kid in high school on a budget working at Kroger and working in the nursery. So every dime I had went into this car. So there's nothing wrong with this engine. It's a 289. We completely rebuilt it, and it in the 80s before I put it in the car. So it's probably still only got less than 50,000 miles on it. The only thing is, the reason going with the 5.0 out of the Lincoln with the newer model is from the factory, this engine had 195 horsepower. But really the major reason we're doing the swap over is because this engine still has the original 289 heads in it. So in that year, in those years, all the engines ran with leaded gasoline. So I can't run unleaded in this unless I put lead additive in it. So it makes it kind of difficult to drive on long trips, and it's not as, you know, it doesn't have as much power as it should have. This is a big old heavy car. So we're going to pull this engine out. Again, there's nothing wrong with this engine. It runs perfectly fine. There's no issues with it, but I'm going to keep it as is. I might put it in another project car at some other point, and I'm just going to hang on to it. And instead of swapping all the parts over from this 289 onto the 5.0, we're just refreshing the 5.0, and I'm going to put a dress-up kit on it. We're not doing a whole lot of performance on the 5.0 they're putting in because, again, this is a big, heavy car. But this is the car, like I said, this is as it sits. This is the same color. So this color was put on in 1986. It's a Ford Regatta Blue, a truck color from the mid-'80s. It's exactly as it sits. It's not been repainted or anything like that. It has had one side, the driver's side has been resprayed at one time because I live on a dirt road and it got into an accident and somebody came over a hilltop, slammed on the brakes and threw a shower of rocks on it. So it peppered one side with the rocks. So it has been just a respray on the driver's side, but the same person did it, and it was the very next year in 1987 when that happened. So it's not like it's been a recent respray. So the car sits as is. It hasn't been changed since like I said, since 1986. Still got the 14-inch Keystone wheels on it. Not that there's anything wrong with those, but they're a little small. We are going to put, and that's why the rear wheel is off. We're actually upgrading it right now. I'm putting on some 20s on the back, 20-inch wheels on the back, and I'm going to put 18s on the front, and we're going to upgrade the disc brakes and put disc brakes on it in the front as well. So that's what we're doing right now. I just wanted to capture this before we moved on. But these right here, this is the wheel that we're putting on. That's the back wheel. It's a 20-inch. Believe me, it fits. We've already tried it and made sure it does fit with No clearance issues. You can't go any wider, can't go any taller, or else you'll start running into clearance issue. But a 20-inch wheel, that wheel right there will fit, and then we're putting 18s on the front. But I don't plan on making any changes to the body of this car. Like I said, I'm going to leave it exactly as is. Right now, my goal is to get it up and running and get it dependable, because my wife and I right now, possibly my parents as well, are planning on, if we can, driving the Hot Rod Power Tour next year. So we want to get it up, dependable, where it can run and drive and go long distances without any issues. So that's my goal right now. I want to add air conditioning to it as well. But other than that, I have no plans on changing it. Obviously, I'll put in a bigger radiator. We're going to update it to 3G alternator. It still has the original, yes, the original generator setup that came out of the station wagon. It's been like that. I mean, not that it's ever had any issues, but obviously a generator doesn't generate the same kind of power. So that's the plan right now. That's what we're doing with this car. So I'll keep filming as we go along and updating this and adding more clips. But I wanted to capture this before we made a whole lot of changes. That way everyone could see it in its original form. Now, pull a cover off of yours, Dad. Now this is my dad's 57 Ford over here. And he's had his car, his 57 Ford, since he was in high school as well. So he's had this car. Now his is a 57 Ford Fairlane 500, and his is a 4-door. He just went through a major restoration doing this all himself. He's done a lot of the same things that I'm doing to my car. We updated to disc brakes on the front, and I'll talk about the things that we used to do that. Put disc brakes on the front, and he's got 17-inch wheels all the way around, and those are off of a Ford Expedition. Yep, Ford Expedition, a truck, and they actually fit front and back with no issues. We did have to put some spacers on the front. Dad's has still got the original 312. We've done a lot of work to that, but it still runs the original 312 in it. But this is Dad's car. He just finished it 2 years ago, not hardly 2 years ago. Yeah. And this was his high school car. So I remember this car as a kid, riding in this car, when I was a kid, and my dad's held on to it. It was his high school car. And it was, what inspired me to pick a 57 Ford as my high school car. And like I said, I drove this. While I was in the military, my dad kept this car here in his garage. And this is the garage that this thing was built in. I know it doesn't look like much. And this is where I get the name of this channel, Barn Door Garage, because this is the exact garage that we built this thing in. It's just an old hand-built wooden barn, wooden garage with 2 bays. Simple concrete floor. But this car was built and painted in here. And this car was built in here as well. It wasn't painted in here. I had someone else paint it for me back in the 80s when I had it painted. But this car, this 57 Ford right here, was built and painted in this garage. But like I said, this is where I get the name of the channel, Barn Door Garage. It's kind of raining right now. But this is the garage that we built all of our cars in. There's been a lot of cars built in this garage right here, both by me, my dad, and my brother. Been a lot of cars go through this garage. It's basic, but it does what it needs to do. It keeps you out of the rain. It lets you work out of the rain, out of the weather, and get your projects done. So more updates, but that's what we're doing today. This is my dad.
Hey guys.
This is my dad. My wife will be over a little while, but that's what we're doing right now. So like I said, we just put in the longer studs in the rear end on this one. This is the original 57 Ford 9-inch rear end. Had to have longer studs in order to mount the bigger wheels and tires. So that's what we're doing right now, is putting the studs, the longer studs, so we can mount those up on this rear end. So that's what we got going. I'll continue to film more. Just want to catch everybody up, see what we're doing. There's the 5.0 that's going to go into this car right there back on the stand, and I'll film some more of that later on.